Second question from follow-up from Masculine Soul a few weeks ago is, what did discipleship look like with my kids in the Hamilton family? Again, with question number one, I'm going to try to just pepper you with a lot of practical answers, and hopefully some of them will be useful to you. We established traditions and routines in our home. Our children derived extreme comfort and confidence in that, something to always look forward to, something to cycle back to in a family that just grounded them, and they appreciated that so much. As I mentioned in the Masculine Soul, we do Advent at the Christmas time to keep that season focused on Christ rather than gifts. We did a family altar most nights during the week. In other words, after dinner, we'd have a time of scripture reading by myself and some prayer. On weekends, we focused more on scripture memorization. And then in the summertime, when kids' schedules were here to and fro, especially as they got older, we focused more on a family prayer list because we ate less meals together. But again, traditions and routines to include meals together in today's hectic and electronic world, I think, were very helpful. Because you never stop discipling your kids, and so you got to be with them to disciple them. Number two would be to kind of live your teachings. If we're going to teach our kids about what faith is and what true Christianity is, then they're going to draw distinctions as they get older between Christianity and other faiths or beliefs that are not Christ-based. I mentioned to you that pointed out churches and which ones are associated with works or another gospel. As they got older, that was just a simple, clear flag for our kids to know to start to make their own decisions spiritually about where to worship. Seizing moments is a big deal. You got to be in tune with the eternal. I know that in our family, discipleship moments were really special when we were together in a starlit night and we looked at God in the sky. Or if in the Washington, D.C. area in 1996 we got 3 feet of snow over 5 days, and then we went out sledding and the whole town was silent except for the three of us sledding. That was just a God moment in the quietness of that snow still coming down. Another God moment is in Alabama when we went out in the middle of a thunderstorm and just let it pound us, and lightning and thunder and wind all around us. Just allowing God to be God all around us. Those are things that the kids have really, my kids really grew up to value. So again, you got to live your teaching, seize the moment, and remember that at all times you are discipling them, whether you know it or not. Another way, a good way to disciple your children is to develop their ability to discern the vital. I mentioned that from Philippians 1 during the men's conference. For instance, the doctrine of salvation versus a less required or less important doctrine, the doctrine of angels versus, for instance, something that's unimportant, like the color of the carpet at church. Okay, that's the sort of stuff that as they get older, they're going to see what's important and where to draw their own lines, and you need to teach them that to them. At an early age, you're not looking for them to draw their own conclusions. You are looking to tell them what your conclusions are. When they get to be old enough, they'll start drawing their own conclusions. They need to know where their daddy stands and where their mommy stands. Teaching baptism is important, and sharing your own baptism experience when you came to Christ. That's a huge motivator for them to want to seek on their own, not be forced, to follow Christ in believers' baptism. Another one is to ask hard questions, like I talked about in the conference as well. If everybody's droning along on a cross-country trip in the car or something, but you want to be able to ask hard questions. What happens to a baby who dies at one day? Other hard questions that I mentioned in the conference. Those are the types of things that generate some discussions. And when they come up with wild or wacky ideas, it's a non-attribution time. Okay, Daddy set them up with a hard, tough question. So when they come back with stupid ideas or stupid comments, or when I say stupid, I mean anti-biblical or certainly abiblical, you don't hassle them for that. You just continue to use it as a teaching moment. You also, and I believe, want to disciple your kids by spending time with their mother. In the Hamilton family, the way we did that was after a meal, after the family altar or what have you, I'd send the kids away from the table for a while, and they would know that during mommy time, which normally lasted 20 minutes, mommy and daddy hung at the table and just kind of talked, and daddy listened to what's going on in mommy's life, and vice versa. That was something that was sacrosanct, and they didn't interrupt that. that they didn't know it at the time, but they actually started to appreciate that themselves. It's kind of like the traditions and the routines. When they see that the father of the house is setting a strong example, then they can take refuge in that family, and they'll always want to come back to it. You want to pepper your kids with Bible trivia. As I also mentioned in the conference, I think that's a good way. It's a lighter way than asking hard questions, but to still get them thinking about spiritual issues. Another one is just playing with them, playing and playing and playing. You're discipling when you're wrestling with your boy. You're discipling when you're play dancing with your ballerina daughter or what have you. One of the best compliments I ever heard from my kids was, "Daddy's fun and he's funny." And that's a way to disciple and to point your own kids to Christ. Celebrating spiritual birthdays in our family was something that we did until they kind of became teenagers. That's just an optional idea, but it's just another way, another different time of the year to bring the focus on them, but in reality focusing on Christ and what Christ did for them. In the same vein, don't hesitate to be publicly proud of your children and their accomplishments. I reject this teaching that there's a wrong kind of pride with regard to your children. That's just my take. But they're going to really be thankful for times when Mommy and Daddy stood up and publicly praised them. And with the right vein, in the right way, and that honors Christ. And don't hesitate to do that would be my advice. You want to allow yourself to be sappy. I once rented a movie that I knew I would cry at, so that my two eldest kids at least would see that. And I actually did that on purpose, and they were genuine tears because I knew it was going to happen. It just makes Daddy real, so that when Daddy's later on with a firm hand correcting them, they're seeing all types of aspects of his personality, if you will. Nevertheless, you always want to be kind. Even when you're firm, you want to be kind. If my parents had an epitaph put on their graves, it would be, "They were kind." That's what I would want to put on them, and I just hopefully am passing that on to my own kids. Daddy, if he's home, puts the kids to bed when they're younger. And when I say younger, I mean up through age like 10 or 12, so that's kind of older than maybe most families. Open the day with Daddy at breakfast if possible. That's often not possible, but concluding the day with the source of leadership and authority within the family, where it's a kind, tender moment of praying and reading and singing and stroking their forehead or their back or what have you, is a nice way to package and end the day, knowing that their closest vision of God, their Father, and that's biblical, is actually putting them to bed at night. It just gives them a feeling of contentment. And lastly, HOP. The acronym HOP, humility and obedience and purity. A God-driven character, like I mentioned in Masculine Soul, has got to predominate. Okay, that's got to predominate all the ones that I just enumerated. You've got to be holy. You've got to be obedient to God and His Word, and you've got to be humble, and you've got to demonstrate that humility to your kids in public and in private moments. That's it.